There is a story circulating in the tennis world right now that sounds almost too strange to be true. It is a story about shoes, about money, about national pride, and about what it actually means to be a star in modern sport. On one side, you have Aryna Sabalenka, the world number 2, a ferocious competitor who has won multiple Grand Slam titles and is widely considered one of the best players on the planet right now. On the other side, you have Alexandra Eala, a teenager from the Philippines who is still working her way up the rankings and has not yet won a major title. And somehow, in the world of sports marketing, the teenager is the one winning. If you enjoy content that goes deeper than just the scores and the highlights, that looks at the business and culture behind elite sport, then this channel is for you. We cover the stories that the mainstream coverage misses. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a video, because this topic is only going to get bigger as the season continues. Now, back to the story. The specific moment that sparked all of this was a shoe release. Nike put out a limited drop connected to Alexandra Eala. The shoes went on sale online, and within 60 seconds, they were completely gone. Not an hour, not 10 minutes, 60 seconds. The website struggled under the traffic. Fans from the Philippines and across Southeast Asia rushed to buy them, and by the time most people had even clicked the link, it was over. The shoes started appearing on resale sites like StockX and eBay almost immediately, listed at 2 and 3 times the original price. It had all the energy of a major sneaker collaboration, the kind usually reserved for artists like Travis Scott or iconic Jordan retro releases. At almost the exact same time, photos started appearing on social media showing a very different reality. People were posting images from Nike factory outlet stores, and in those images, row after row of Aryna Sabalenka's signature shoes were sitting on shelves with bright red discount stickers attached. The Nike Zoom GP Turbo, the shoe Sabalenka has worn through some of her biggest victories, was marked down by 50% in clearance sections across America and Europe. The contrast was brutal. Eala's shoes were gold dust that fans were scrambling to resell at huge profit. Sabalenka's shoes were taking up space in the bargain bin. According to people who follow the tour closely and sources close to those in Sabalenka's camp, she is not happy about this. And honestly, when you look at the full picture, it is very hard to blame her. Sabalenka has built one of the most impressive records in women's tennis over the past few years. She defends titles. She reaches the final stages of nearly every major tournament she enters. She plays a style of tennis that is almost impossible to ignore. Powerful, aggressive, full of emotion. She roars after her winners. She wears her heart on her sleeve. She is not a boring champion. She is exactly the kind of athlete that brands are supposed to love. So how did the world number 2 end up in the clearance aisle, while a teenager with a fraction of her achievements is selling out in under a minute? To really understand this, you have to look at how Nike approaches different kinds of athletes. And once you understand the system, it starts to make a strange kind of sense, even if it still feels deeply unfair to Sabalenka and her supporters. When Nike signs a top-ranked established player, someone who is guaranteed to be on television at every major tournament throughout the year, they tend to use what you could call a mass market approach. They know that Sabalenka is going to be visible. She's going to be on court at the Australian Open, at Wimbledon, at the US Open, on the biggest stages in the sport. So Nike manufactures a large volume of her shoes. They push them out to big box retailers, to tennis shops, to sporting goods stores, to malls. The logic is that the more shoes they make, the more revenue they can generate from her visibility. The problem with this approach is simple mathematics. When you produce hundreds of thousands of pairs of shoes, you need hundreds of thousands of buyers. If the general public does not buy them quickly enough at full price, those shoes eventually have to be discounted to clear the inventory. They end up on the clearance rack. It has nothing to do with Sabalenka as a person or as an athlete. She is just caught in a supply chain that overestimated demand. Alexandra Eala was handled completely differently. Nike, or at least the people managing this particular campaign, understood something very specific about Eala's fanbase. Filipinos are extraordinary supporters of their athletes. When a Filipino athlete reaches the global stage, the national pride that follows them is intense and deeply emotional. Nike knew this. They also likely understood that the hype around Eala's limited release could generate far more media attention than simply stocking her shoes in shops. So they deliberately kept the supply very low. They created scarcity on purpose. They made it so that demand would overwhelm supply almost instantly. And when the shoes sold out in 60 seconds, that became the story. It became a headline. It became a moment. Sold out in 60 seconds sounds like a cultural phenomenon. Sold 50,000 pairs over 6 months sounds like a quarterly report. Nike chose the phenomenon, and it worked exactly as planned.
Here's the uncomfortable truth that this whole episode is forcing the tennis world to confront. For most of the history of sport, the assumption was simple: winning equals sales. You lift the trophy, you become famous, people buy your products. That model worked for decades. It still works to some extent. But in the age of social media, something has shifted. The equation now is not just about winning, it is about connection. It is about whether a fan feels emotionally attached to an athlete in a way that makes buying their merchandise feel like something personal. When a Filipino fan buys an Alex Eala shoe, they are not just buying a shoe, they are making a statement. They are saying that the Philippines belongs on the world stage. They are buying representation. They are buying national pride. The purchase carries an emotional weight that goes way beyond the product itself. That kind of loyalty is almost impossible to manufacture through advertising. It is organic, and it is incredibly powerful from a commercial perspective. Sabalenka occupies a more complicated space in this regard. She is from Belarus, a country that carries significant geopolitical weight in the current global climate, and that context makes it harder for her to become a simple feel-good story for a mass audience. Beyond the politics, her brand is built on intensity, dominance, and aggression. These are genuinely exciting qualities on a tennis court, but translating that energy into a lifestyle that people want to buy into off the court is a different challenge. Power and ferocity do not always translate naturally into the kind of aspirational identity that sells trainers to teenagers on Instagram. And this is where Nike has to take real responsibility, because what becomes clear when you look at Sabalenka's marketing compared to some of her peers is that the effort simply is not there. Consider what New Balance has done with Coco Gauff. They built her a signature shoe that has a genuine identity. It has her personality in it. It looks different from anything else on the market. When you see that shoe, you know whose it is. The branding tells a story. Now look at what Sabalenka has been given. She is largely wearing a general team model in a specific colorway. There is no tiger logo that her fans have been calling for. There is no signature lifestyle range. There are no streetwear collaborations. There is no attempt to take what makes Sabalenka unique and turn it into something that people want to own. She is being treated as if she is just one player among many on a roster, rather than a multi-slam champion who has been one of the best players in the world for several years. When a champion is marketed like a generic athlete, the market responds by treating her products like generic inventory. That is exactly what is happening here. So what happens next? This is where things get genuinely interesting, because the sports industry has seen this story before, and it rarely ends well for the brand that takes their athlete for granted. Think about Roger Federer. For a long time, Federer was the face of Nike tennis. He was the most marketable player in the game, arguably one of the most marketable athletes in any sport. And then he left Nike. He moved to Uniqlo and eventually became a co-owner of On Running. Part of the reason was commercial and financial, but part of it was about respect and creative control. He wanted to be treated as a partner, not just an endorsee. Look at what happened with Iga Swiatek, the current world #1. She also left Nike and became the face of On Running, a brand that was not even primarily associated with tennis, became home to the best player on the planet. Why? Because they offered her something Nike apparently did not, a genuine identity and a sense that she mattered to the brand at the highest level. If the reports about Sabalenka's frustration are accurate, and given what the market is visibly showing, they seem very plausible, then the people in her team are watching all of this very carefully. They're looking at the headline that Eala sold out in 60 seconds and Sabalenka is 50% off, and they are using that as a negotiating tool. They are going to Nike and making it clear that the current situation is not acceptable for someone of her standing, and if Nike cannot or will not fix it, then other brands will be listening very attentively. Imagine what it would mean for Adidas or Asics or a newer brand like Lululemon or Alo Yoga to sign the world #2. Imagine Sabalenka walking out at the next Grand Slam in a different brand's gear, having publicly walked away because her previous sponsor put her shoes in the bargain bin. That would be a marketing moment that money cannot buy. Brands will be aware of this opportunity. There is also a generational element to this story that is worth thinking about carefully. Alexandra Eala is very much part of a generation that grew up on social media. Her engagement online, particularly on Instagram and TikTok, is enormous relative to her current ranking. She connects with a young, mobile-first audience across Asia in a way that feels natural and authentic. The Asian market is one of the most important growth markets on Earth for every major Western brand, and the appetite for sport in the Philippines, in Indonesia, in Vietnam, across the region is enormous and expanding. Nike is clearly aware of this, and investing in Eala, even at limited scale, is a bet on capturing that market now before the competition catches up. Sabalenka is established, extremely successful, and still relatively young as a professional athlete, but there is a possibility that somewhere in Nike's thinking, she is already being categorized as the present, while Eala and athletes like her represent the future. That would be a strange and arguably short-sighted calculation, given that Sabalenka is actively winning right now. But corporations do not always make decisions based purely on what is happening today. They make bets on where the money is going to be in 5 and 10 years, and right now, a lot of those bets have a strong Southeast Asian accent.
The reaction on social media to all of this has been fierce on both sides. Eala's supporters have been celebrating loudly, posting screenshots of their successful orders, taking genuine pride in the sellout moment as proof that their hero belongs on the biggest stage. One widely shared comment read simply that some people may have the trophies, but Eala's fans have the culture. There is real substance to that sentiment. Culture moves products in ways that trophies alone cannot. Sabalenka's fans are equally loud in their frustration. They argue, with some justification, that Nike has completely failed to build her brand in the way that her achievements deserve. They point out that if even a fraction of the creative energy and marketing budget that went into the Eala drop had been applied to Sabalenka consistently over the past few years, her shoes would never have ended up on a clearance rack. They see the red discount sticker as evidence of corporate negligence toward a player who has given the brand exactly what a sports company should want: a winning, exciting, highly visible champion. Both sides have a point, and that tension is what makes the story so interesting. It is not simply a case of one person being more deserving than another. It is a story about how value is constructed and perceived in modern sports, about the difference between achievement and cultural resonance, and about how brands decide which stories they want to tell. If Nike wants to fix this before they lose one of the best players in the world, they have a clear path forward. The first thing they need to do is give Sabalenka a genuine identity within their brand. She needs a signature shoe that actually looks like it belongs to her specifically. It should reflect the way she moves, the aggression she plays with, the personality that makes her compelling to watch. The tiger imagery that her fans have been asking for is an obvious starting point. Make her feel dangerous and exciting on a shelf, not just on a court. Second, they need to think seriously about how they manage her inventory. Stop saturating the market with mass-produced generic colorways and then wondering why excess stock ends up discounted. Create limited editions. Make a Grand Slam version with 5,000 pairs. Prove that they can generate the same kind of excitement for Sabalenka that they created for Eala. If the product is right and the campaign is executed properly, there is no reason why a champion of her caliber cannot sell out in a minute too. For Sabalenka herself, the most powerful thing she can continue to do is win. The clearance rack is embarrassing. It is genuinely disrespectful given what she has achieved, and it is right that she and her team are addressing it. But the trophy cabinet is what gives her the leverage to demand better. Every title she wins strengthens her negotiating position. She needs to think of herself as running a business because at her level, that is exactly what she is doing. And if her current business partner is not valuing her stock correctly, then the market will offer her better terms elsewhere. This whole situation really is about much more than two athletes and a shoe company. It is a snapshot of where elite sport sits right now in a world that is being reshaped by social media, by the rise of Asian consumer markets, and by the growing gap between traditional ideas of success and the new currency of cultural connection. Aryna Sabalenka sold out because she represents something to a passionate, connected national fan base that extends far beyond tennis. Sabalenka is dominant because she is genuinely one of the best players in the world. Both things can be true at the same time. The tragedy is that a brand with Nike's resources should be capable of serving both stories properly, and right now they appear to be failing one of them quite badly. Keep watching the small details as the season develops. Look at which shoes Sabalenka is wearing at the next major. Look for any subtle changes, a blacked-out logo, a brand tag that seems out of place, a cryptic caption on social media. These are often the early signs that something significant is happening behind the scenes. The business of sport moves as fast as the sport itself, and this particular story is far from finished. If you found this breakdown useful and want more content that looks at the real business and culture underneath elite sport, please subscribe and leave a comment below. Tell me what you think. Is this a failure of Nike's marketing team, or is it simply the market telling us the truth about who is capturing the public imagination right now? Does Sabalenka deserve better treatment? And if you were in her position, would you stay with Nike or would you start looking for the exit? Every comment helps this channel grow, and I read as many as I can. See you in the next one.